This episode is brought to you by Sisu Sauna. Sauna and contrast therapy offers a natural and holistic approach to wellness, providing numerous benefits that support physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Heat from the sauna helps relax muscles and improves blood circulation, aiding in the recovery of strained or fatigued muscles. It can also help reduce muscle soreness after intense physical activity. We've been lucky enough to have Sisu Sauna on board as a partner of Power Monkey Camp for the past few camps, and it's been an incredible addition. We've added contrast therapy as a station to our camp, and the campers and staff have loved the added experience. I try to jump in the sauna as often as I can. We're in Tennessee for our camp, and I can't wait to add one of these to my home gym. Sisu saunas are made in the USA using the highest quality wood and steel products, plus their new Hume heaters are the best on the market. If you're interested in trying contrast therapy, we cannot recommend these saunas highly enough. Please use the code POWERMONKEY, all one word, all lowercase, for 5% off. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world of fitness about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host this week being Jordan Samuel and Brian Jones, Mr. BJ himself, the man, the myth, the legend. For those of you who have been down to Power Monkey Camp, you know who BJ is. He is the one that makes sure that camp runs smoothly as our facility managers down in Tennessee. He's the man that makes it all happen for us. We are speaking with one of the co-founders of Sisu Sauna, Mr. Peter Nelson. Peter has quite the backstory, and we could have done the whole podcast discussing his latest adventure down in Antarctica. It is absolutely an incredible story, worth listening to. The beginning of the podcast goes through some of that adventure, which is awesome. But we also discuss the journey of getting Sisu Sauna off the ground to where it is today, and also go through some of the benefits that come along with consistent sauna exposure. We were lucky enough to have one of the first Sisu saunas at Power Monkey Camp just a few years ago, and it quickly became one of the most used recovery tools by our campers and staff. We use it on its own, but in conjunction also with our ice barrels for our contrast experience down there. I absolutely loved speaking with Peter. He is as authentic as it gets, and it comes through from the first time that you speak with him. We hope you enjoy this episode.
What is going on, guys?
Yo!
Yeah. What's up?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm really good. It's I live in Cleveland, Ohio, so it's a little hot here in the best ways possible. So like we're soaking it up as much as we can. I'm sure
Being hot is kind of your thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's not such a bad deal.
Yeah, for sure. What's new with you guys?
We're all kind of different, spread out throughout the world. I'm on the West Coast, Jordan on the East Coast, BJ in Tennessee. So we're all doing our thing in different spots.
I haven't seen you guys in like over a year. I love the energy that came from the Power Monkey Camp. But it's been so fun to just like continue to see your guys' growth. And like obviously like the evolution of the podcast has been really fun to watch. But it's also cool, like I watch BJ's Instagram all the time too, and he's always like headed out there and having a good time in the sauna. So
BJ's the best. Your posts, like just, especially if you're a dad and like you can pick up on BJ's just perfect, spot on experience as a dad to young kids. It's just like BJ. Every day I'm like, what is he posting? Because I need that laugh in the morning to get myself going.
Doing my part, fellas. Just doing my part.
Amazing.
Well, before we even get going, you mentioned Cleveland, Ohio, and we were talking about it beforehand. What is it with Ohio? I mean, I don't know if it's maybe just our team and our staff, but you and Wyatt from Ice Barrel, Mike Service, who's our lead weightlifting coach. We got Dr. Allison Brager, who is also an Ohioan, who's sleep expert, NASA, on her way to becoming an astronaut. Dr. Julie Fouché, another one just in the medical space, CrossFit space. Ohio seems to breed Dan Bailey. I mean, like, Ohio seems to be like a hotbed for fitness and recovery and all you guys are doing. What's going on out there? Is something in the water in Ohio? You guys make good bagels too?
Yeah, we make very good bagels. I don't know if they're New York City bagels, but the food scene in Ohio is amazing. I do think that Ohio lends itself to very blue collar roots, right? I think that lower cost of living, the just kind of like the pace of life is very different. So like when you have an idea, I feel like you could stay focused on the idea in Ohio. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of these other cities and states. And so for us, it's like, you know, when you have an idea and you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you can lean in harder on that and also be able to find help quicker because people want to work. And I think that helps, you know, lend a hand to a good startup. And, you know, Wyatt got the idea off the ground in Colorado, then moved all the manufacturing to Ohio because he can produce in Ohio. Because again, like the blue collarness helps. We've got a full Amish team in Amish country in Ohio that does all of our saunas. So I think that there's something there. Rogue Fitness is from Ohio.
Yep.
West Side. I think you're onto something that I've never really thought about. But when people say it's Ohio made, I think that there's a different level of like quality that people expect when it's Ohio made. It's not like the same thing when somebody says it's like Kansas made or I don't know, Virginia made. It's Ohio made sounds kind of gritty. So
Is that a shot on Kansas? You guys have
no,
a
I
beef there or
love
something?
Kansas, dude. Don't put that on the podcast.
All the
I
Kansas
saw it.
listeners just dropped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just yeah.
I saw a list of the top 5 states where there's the most percentage of Italians, and Ohio is in the top 5. So I was like, you know what? There's something special about Ohio. I got to spend more time in Ohio. There's
Never
a lot of
would've
my
guessed
brethren
that.
out there as well. New Jersey, of course, is in the top 3, but Ohio's
Yeah.
in the top 5. It's I was happy to see that.
You know, it's funny that you say that now. I have a lot of friends that are Italian, and we have an incredible Little Italy downtown area in Cleveland that we love going on like date nights and taking our friends to. So there's an energy to that as well that we love to be around.
We got to come back down there more often. Maybe watch a football game. Are you a Browns fan?
Yeah, I know you're a big Giants guy.
Yes.
So this is like the make or break year for the Browns.
And we'll see what ends up happening. And BJ is a huge Packers fan, so we go back and forth. We have our fantasy football team with Power Monkey, and I don't think either the three of us, none of us have ever won, but we both dive quite deeply into the NFL season as it's coming up now.
That's fantastic. Yeah, this will be a really unique year. Jordan Love looks incredible right now for you
It
guys.
does.
I would
Thank you.
be incredibly excited if I were you as a Packers fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
Luckiest guy that I
organization-
know.
and- yeah, yeah.
I didn't hear any love for Daniel Jones yet, but I love my Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, stay on your feet, buddy. Heal up that ACL. We're all pulling for you, man.
David, did you see that Jordan Love recently got engaged to his longtime girlfriend in Italy? That actually
Oh,
happened.
really?
That was just a couple days ago. So just to bring it back to that, that early days Vince Lombardi New York Giant tie-in.
You know
there's like
it. You know,
yeah.
and
I don't, not to move the conversation off of Ohio. I want to stay with that, but like there's definitely the family. It's the family. Yeah.
And just so you're aware, me and Jordan and the rest of the Power Monkey team are all going to Italy this week. We have our
Wow.
retreat in Sicily next week. I mean, I don't know
Amazing.
when this is airing, but you'll probably be seeing a lot of posts and a lot of content coming out of Italy over there. I'll be there for the next 5 weeks.
Awesome.
But we have
Wow.
Sicily coming up where we're going to be showing some of our Power Monkey participants a great time down in southern part of Italy. So we're excited to get out there tomorrow.
Man, such a blessing for you guys to be able to have that flexibility. To be
Yeah.
able to travel, especially because I know you're a dad too. So to be
Yeah,
able
bring
to,
the fam. Bring the fam with me.
does that mean that is in place of your guys' typical Crete, Greece? trip that
Yes,
you-
we're doing Sicily this year in place of Crete. We're going to try to expand into some new fun locations, and obviously Italy for us is a special one since we have so many connections and contacts and family out there. But Sicily is a new spot for a lot of us, so we're excited to get down there and check it out.
That's fantastic. I've never been. I want to go so bad. I know that the food scene's incredible, the wine's amazing, but
We got to get
that's
you out there with for one of them, man.
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
We'll keep it on the agenda. Now,
Yeah. Really.
something that you did, we wanted to bring up that you did fairly recently that just blew our minds, this Antarctic marathon. And we wanted to just talk about you as a fitness enthusiast taking on extreme challenges and what this whole thing was about. 31.1 miles, 3,200 feet of elevation of ascent. Can you walk us through kind of what's the mindset in trying to take on a challenge like that?
Yeah, this was an idea about 4 years ago between my dad and I. My dad and I have been ultra running since maybe 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And at the point of us pulling the trigger on this race, we knew we wanted to do something completely out of the ordinary, different continent and a different level of challenge. And so this was going to be the first year, the inaugural year for the Antarctica 50K. And I know that there's been other ultra marathons ran on the continent since then, But at the same time, there's always been like the 50 milers. There's been 100 milers, but those were always self-supported. It wasn't an actual organized event. So this was the first legit organized 50K on the continent of Antarctica that we know of. And so it kind of just lent its hand to being insane, or for us to lean in on this challenge and opportunity to run with 150 other runners from all over the world and congregate and celebrate fitness, celebrate the fact that we have two able legs that we could endure on Antarctica. But it exceeded my expectations once we got there. And so the process went as this was March of this year. We flew from Cleveland, Ohio to Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires, we were there for 3 days with the group of runners. And then we went from there to Ushuaia. Ushuaia is the southernmost city in the world, and that is in Argentina. And then that is the start of the Drake Passage. The Drake Passage is about 700 or so miles in width, and that is notorious to be the worst sea in the world. 25, 30-foot sustained waves, and we had to take a boat to get across to Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew going in that was going to be the biggest mental challenge for me because I don't do great on the water in terms of, nasty waves. It just turns your stomach like no other. And it proved to be like a good crossing, but it was still challenging. A lot of people were self-medicated trying to get through their upset stomachs. They were vomiting prior. And ironically, after 48 hours of straight 20 to 25-foot sustained waves, we made our first landing. And that first full day was the day of the ultra marathon. So everybody's depleted completely of all their bodily fluids. They're, headache ridden, electrolyte levels are low. They haven't eaten that much because they were sick. And so it really set the stage for a very gritty 50K. And the way that we ended up landing for the 50K is that we couldn't just walk out of the boat. We had to go from one boat to a Zodiac, basically an expedition cruiser with all of our expedition gear on, and get out onto land with this expedition cruiser. We got there and we were confined to one spot for the entire 50K for all of our water, our supplies, and our food. We can't take anywhere else because it's a leave no trace area. And there's penguins on the course. There's all sorts of mud, all sorts of craziness. And so the way it ended up going, it was an 4-loop course, 8-mile loops. And it was mid-20s. It was way more muddy than I could have ever anticipated. There was very little snow where we were, but where the Chinese research base was, where one of the turnaround points where we were crossing penguins each and every time. And so it was one of the craziest experiences. And so about halfway through, I started to realize like there was a potential to win the race and become like the first overall winner for this 50K. And so I just continued to put in my mind that the nearest runner behind me was closing in. So I kind of created this paradigm that like, I'm going to get caught. And so I continued to push the pace and push the pace and push the pace and ended up winning the event. And it made for just a really incredible memory that I got to share with my dad. And that's a whole nother story too. This was my dad's big comeback race after battling cancer and relearning how to walk after a stroke. And so for the fact that he was able to be down there in Antarctica, be able to also perform his marathon and be able to do it with 150 other runners, it was just so incredible. So all I have to say, Antarctica was wild. Highly recommend it. Put it on the bucket list if you are a world traveler. It's only going to get harder to go down to Antarctica because the supply in terms of the amount of ships going down is only finite. They can't increase the amount going down there because it's going to ruin the environment, which means that the demand's getting higher and it's only going to cost more. So if you're looking to get down there, I would definitely recommend putting in now and understand and anticipate that you'll probably be down there within 2 to 3 years after you put in.
Dude,
I have a question.
Incredible.
It is incredible. When like none of us obviously have ever been there other than you. And when you think of Antarctica, you think of one thing. You think of just like, snow and ice and all these things, but you said there was like very little snow there. What was the landscape actually like? Can you compare it to another part of the world that maybe we have seen or been to before that we can relate to?
Yeah. So ironically, the only spot that did not have snow was where we ran. And I'm happy about that because it would have made for a much different race. It was extremely muddy. Easily the muddiest race I've ever been in my life. And a lot of time we're just stepping in penguin shit along the way and you don't realize that you're doing that. But once you got beyond where we ran, it was nothing but glaciated environment, tons of snow, wildlife everywhere. The best way to describe it would be if you've ever been to the Grand Tetons out in Yellowstone or out there in Wyoming, where you just have these mammoth mountains that come right out of the water, and they're so majestic and they're super steep, but they're completely untouched. And it would go on for thousands of miles. So the Antarctic Peninsula is nothing but mountains and water. And where the wildlife is, we have what we're literally sitting in this Zodiac 8-person rubber tube like military grade boat, and you have these leopard seals that are known to be just as fierce as killer whales as being like the biggest predators in Antarctica, sitting probably 5 feet away from you on ice floes. Meanwhile, you've got whales fluking out of the water, and then you have penguins, thousands of penguins in colonies next to you, and you're just sitting there taking it in. And I've never been a part of nature quite like that before, where I could just get eaten right now, and it changed your perspective. And it was one of those things as we got back to the real world and we got back to Buenos Aires to get back to the US, I was like, man, people have no idea how incredibly sheltered and how incredibly how much we are in a bubble in like our modern society. And then you go down there and within a moment's notice, you could just get eaten. It's crazy. It is so crazy, man. So yeah, that's the best way to describe the environment, man. It's so cool.
Well, first off, congrats, man. That's incredible. And to come away with a victory on the first one is just like legendary. I mean, Duke spent a whole podcast just talking about this, but to be able to do it with your dad after, overcoming such an incredible life challenge, was the anticipation when you guys were going down there for you guys to kind of trek together and try to do it together? And you were like, I could actually possibly win this. Like, peace out, Dad. Like, you're on your own for the rest of the race.
So we made that decision 24 hours prior to the race. We were able to, for safety reasons, they asked us to put in what we think our ideal finishing time will be. And after being able to look at the leaderboard, my dad, and also at the same time getting to look at the course, the original idea was that we were going to do it side by side together and just grit it out and have a good time. But then my dad looked at me, he's like, dude, you could win this thing. You should. I think that you'll be just fine, and I will be just fine if you just go and run your own race. And I'm obviously extremely happy that we did. And I still got to cross paths with my dad so many different times and be able to share a beer with him after and get to celebrate the proper way.
Wow, that's incredible, man. You guys think you'll do it again?
Not down there. I'm good. It's a one and done with Antarctica. It's a hell of a flight pattern to get down there.
Yeah.
But I do believe either next year or the following year, we're going to do a ultra marathon in Kenya in a game sanctuary and run with the lions and run with the elephants. And they say with that race, the moniker is just don't be the slowest.
Only 10% survive.
Right.
Incredible, man. What an adventure. So you're kind of like us in terms of taking on incredible feats. I don't think any of us are in the ultra endurance marathon world, but it leads us kind of to this fitness space. And you had a chance to come and hang out with us at Power Monkey Camp a little while back, and adding sauna to our experience there has been incredible. And like BJ's the one that kind of ends up using it most often because he lives at the facility in Tennessee. He's there on a daily basis. He put together the entire thing for us, and we wanted to get into this idea of how did sauna become part of your experience in the fitness space? Was it something that kind of you've always used yourself as part of your recovery tool? Was it something new and you were like, hey, the recovery space is clearly leaning into this as a tool and I can kind of help facilitate? What led you into this space just from an experience standpoint and then saying, hey, I can become an entrepreneur here as well?
Yeah, I would, if you were to tell me 5 years ago that I would have a sauna at my house, I would have laughed at you. If you would have told me 5 years ago, 3 years ago that we would be manufacturing ourselves, I would have laughed at you. There was nowhere in the cards that sauna was going to be this mechanism for me to be able to help support my family and then also provide an impact in the US. But I got introduced to sauna about 4 years ago, where my business partner was Sisu. He ended up buying a barrel sauna off of after this XBT experience that he did out in Malibu at Laird Hamilton's house, and he just really loved the barrel sauna. He went and bought the barrel sauna after. And then Nick, who was a good friend at the time, he was just like, "Hey, there's this potential opportunity for us to be able to potentially wholesale saunas, basically drop ship saunas from this manufacturer to people in Ohio, because there was no dealer in Ohio for that manufacturer that owned the rights to Ohio." And so it was just kind of like a fun side hustle at the time. I was a personal trainer and owned a gym in Cleveland, Ohio. And he had his own entrepreneurial endeavors he was knee deep with. And so we were like, yeah, this would be super fun. And so through that process, ended up buying my own sauna for our personal property. And that's just when the research was starting to come out on traditional dry sauna, at least 176 degrees to about 214 degrees Fahrenheit, for that to be super beneficial, not just for longevity, cardiovascular disease decline, stress, the whole gambit recovery. And there was all this research starting to come out of Finland. And you also saw at the same time that the sauna industry was starting to see a massive increase in sales. And so obviously what we were starting to realize is that the Scandinavian countries have been doing it right for a very, very long time. And the US was just starting to grasp onto what sauna actually is. And we're still trying to, most consumers are still trying to figure out what sauna actually is. And so through this process, COVID hit, and just like any other company, most companies had to pivot out or pivot the business to be able to best set themselves up for future success with COVID. And that's when we realized that the best next step for the company was to actually manufacture ourselves. In fact, we saw a 12-month period as a wholesaler where we didn't have a single sauna sale. And so it was March of 2022, we made the decision on an early morning trail run that manufacturing was the next pivot point for our company if we're going to do this the right way to have the biggest impact. And so we ended up landing on this incredible relationship with a facility in Amish country in Ohio, where we could come up and run up right next to them to be able to create a super simple but premium sauna experience that could be mass produced in a way to where there's not a decrease in quality, but a way for us to be able to create a brand and a community around sauna by just keeping things super simple. And so we got the business off the ground in August of 2022 as our own manufacturer. That's when we launched. And I believe Power Monkey has one of the first 5 units we've ever created. And I don't know if Daniel had ever told you that, but
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I still
Nicole
think
said
about
something.
I still think about that very regularly, just how blessed we were to be able to work with you guys at such an early stage of the company. And so now you fast forward to where we're at now, we've continued to just grow the brand off of 2 sauna SKUs, our Edwin barrel and the Eddie barrel, the 6-person sauna, or the 2-person sauna. And that's how we've been able to continue to drive home and educate people on just keeping things simple from the buyer perspective, but the user perspective, but also the education perspective. When somebody goes to our website, we don't want somebody to be overwhelmed with all these different options and different heaters and different types of wood. We really wanted to vet out the process the right way and make it to where when somebody goes to our website, there shouldn't be buyer fatigue or education fatigue to be able to purchase a sauna. And so that's how we've really grown the brand and continue to partner with great people, just like Power Monkey Fitness, the brand, and our other ambassadors to be able to help continue to educate and get the word out on sauna.
That's incredible, man. Well, congrats on the success over the course of a fairly short period of time. And I think we're all honored to be a part of that early success and to be able to showcase what a great product it is. I have to say that it's one of the most used pieces of anything, equipment, recovery tools that we have at camp, during camp, outside of the camp. BJ is at Flip Fest right now running their kids Flip Fest, the summer camp for gymnastics, and it gets used regularly even through the summer now with him and some of the other staff and the other people they have got going on. So it's turned into one of the most important pieces of our week at camp, not just for the sauna. We'll talk about how we use it for recovery with the ice barrels as well, and some of the therapeutic benefits, but just from the perspective of a user, sometimes we don't know how effective the things that we bring in are going to be. And the Sisu sauna has been overwhelmingly like an incredible positive addition to the week at camp for the campers and for the staff, which has been awesome to see.
Yeah,
That's
including the
fantastic.
community aspect of it too. The sitting in the sauna with all the other staff and coaches and even the other participants, like you suffer in there together. It's a great way to kind of bond and break down, walls and whatnot. So it's great from that perspective as well.
I would love to figure out a way to be able to get, and I was talking with Danielle about this, another sauna down there for the Power Monkey events, just to be able to continue to get more people inside the sauna when you guys are doing your contrast round. So I definitely want to work something out there, whether that means that we put a mobile unit in Nashville and then we hike it on over. That would be incredible. But I definitely know, like Jordan, like you're alluding to, the number one benefit that I've always had with sauna therapy is the relationships that are made from the sauna, whether that's people that I've known for years and years, my wife, or people I'm just getting to know now. Because it's so hot, you can't use your phone in there. So it is a true shared suffering, and it makes you super present toward the conversation that you're having. And then it's getting real tough when the conversation starts to die out a little bit, and all the lights come down, and the suffering starts to start a little bit. It's something that I wish more people understood in terms of my whole end goal is to get as many people in the sauna as possible, because I want people to experience that same sensation with the other people, but also at the same time, the hardship that you can endure into a sauna. And then that level of endorphin rush that you get outside the sauna when you step out. The world would be a much better place if people were at the exposal of sauna more.
We had an interesting addition to the sauna experience at our last Power Monkey camp. We had a group come out. I don't know if you saw the pictures or the videos that came from it, but we had a group come from Italy. I got to give a shout out to CrossFit Crabs in Bassano. They had an awesome group. About 10 of them came out, and a couple of them, a brother and sister, they are professional world competitors in Aufgas sauna experience, which was all new for us. Like, we didn't really know this German style of basically like towel twirling and basically trying to create a situation where the air is constantly moving and bringing the hot air down from the sauna down and constantly keeping it in contact with the body throughout. And it was amazing. Obviously, the six person barrel is not huge, and he's used to doing it in saunas out in Europe where there's like 200, 300 people, where it's enormous. But he went in there and he did it for us, and it was like the experience for the people that participated was like no other. Like, people are still talking about that experience in the sauna. It was really incredible. And I'm curious, from your perspective, how deep you've kind of dived into sauna culture, and if you've actually ever done something like that, or are you still learning about like all the things that are done in the Scandinavian countries and people have been doing it for years? Or are these things kind of what you're doing in your sauna now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am learning just like everybody else is learning, I feel like, in the US right now. I have not experienced towel throwing the right way like you guys did. So I was extremely jealous when I got to see that video of everybody having a good time in the sauna with the towel throwing. But when you, especially like with the US right now, because it's just being introduced to sauna, I think that we're all starting to realize the right ways to sauna, the improper ways to sauna, different rituals in the sauna. One of my favorite things to do, and I know that you guys got to experience it too, is like the different essential oils into the water and then pouring the water on the rocks, and how that heightens the experience, become very aromatic. And especially in the Scandinavian countries, steam is a massive part of the sauna. There's no way that you could perfectly equate steam and humidity in a sauna in a setting to where you could continue to replicate it over time. So you're not going to see too much research on traditional sauna with added steam, what they call lolu. But lolu essentially in Finnish, is the combination of heat, the relationships, the conversation that's in the barrel or in the sauna, plus the steam. And when you add steam to the rocks, all of a sudden it becomes this environment where your head wants to go down even farther because the humidity is so high. But that to me is the real rich traditional sauna experience, is high heat with great steam and great conversations, and something that you can't really equate to like quantitative data. It's like this qualitative setting where you feel so good in, and when you step out, you feel even better. That's the stuff that I want to get more people on.
Pete, I've been in the last 8-10 months or so, a couple of friends of mine and I have been getting together once or twice a week to sauna and cold plunge. And one of the things we started doing more of is exactly what you're talking about, is using the water to create more steam. And it is literally my favorite part of coming back after the ice bath, getting in and dumping a bunch of water on the rocks with the essential oils in there and the way it makes you feel. But there's something that we learned recently from a Russian guy guy actually from Russia who I'm friends with, who's been sauning forever. I'm curious if you've been incorporating this too in regards to prepping the sauna and the humidity. But what he was saying is that when you are heating up your sauna for an hour or two or whatever it takes in order to get it up to temperature beforehand, he will go in multiple times and spray the walls down with water to help increase that humidity so that when you get in there, it's already humid and these sorts of things. And I'm curious if you've been doing that as well, or if it's just the water on the rocks when you first get in.
Yeah, so I don't spend too much time going in just because of the convenience of my schedule with the kids and my family. I don't really go back and forth into the sauna when I should be with my kids. So I haven't really experimented too much with getting the cedar like primed for it, the rocks primed. A really good thing to note specifically when it comes to getting your sauna prep for like the best sauna experience possible, you want your sauna to at least heat up for about an hour. Now, a lot of times, especially in the environment right now, like with the temperature outside being 90 plus degrees all across the US, it's only going to probably take a half hour for that sauna to get ripping hot. But there's still an acclimation period that you need the stones to be able to heat up themselves. So when you have a high stone mass heater, 100 plus pounds, 200 plus pound heater of stone, it should take at least an hour to an hour and a half, even sometimes 2 hours for all the stones to get real hot. So it's a nice even heat. And then that's where you get the best steam. But when you factor in the cedar too, like you're saying, like the Russian Banya sauna experiences, that's how they get the cedar starts to absorb all the water, so it naturally increases the humidity inside the sauna. I don't know, BJ, like if you've done like a solid sauna session right after a rain, but that's another great way to get, nasty humidity inside your sauna is when the rain's going down, either during that rain session or like right after the rain is done, you get in that sauna and the humidity is already like around 20 to 30%. It could get nasty really quick. So the cedars are great. The cedar's very absorbent naturally, but it could get nasty, man, if you start to prep your sauna like the way that your friend was talking about it.
Yeah.
One of the things that's been awesome about the experience here, we have some Russian friends that coach gymnastics as well, and they've suggested that exact same thing that Jordan's talking about. And obviously our experiences during Power Monkey, where you learn these different ways to enjoy the sauna, whether you're just sitting in there and you're listening to a podcast like this one, or the best way I think is what we're all talking about is the steam and the conversation. But definitely, Peter, like you're talking about with having the walls wet while it's raining, and you go in there and it's just a different level. It's just it's like the air's heavier, and it's the exact kind of challenge that you're looking for. And if you're in the sauna regularly, I feel like it changes it a little bit. So you get a different experience, and you still have the same benefits. All the same benefits are there. So we've been, again, 1,000 thank yous to you and Sisu for hooking us up, because we're living the best life with that thing.
Good. I love to hear that, man. And hopefully that continues for the next couple of years, 3-4 years. And as like the experience continues to evolve, man, I think it's going to be so fun to be able to, like one of my end goals with Sisu is to be able to have an event trailer where we could like pop up with a 30-person, 40-person sauna and have it wood fired, and you have off gas happening where you've got all these people in there, and the circulation of the air is just hitting people in ways. It's so fun. But that's an end goal of mine, is to be able to roll up to different events across the country with these sizable units.
Can't wait to see
man.
Yeah.
When you get a barrel in Nashville, let me know. I know how to get to Nashville. Just so if you need a driver, I volunteer as tribute. So
I'll hit you up.
Can we go through some protocols? Because, obviously suggested temperatures, suggested duration can vary, and maybe the benefits vary as well according to those kind of things. Do you have any recommendations according to maybe what a new user would do versus someone who's experienced, how to get the most out of it?
Yeah. So there's so many different, it all depends on your end outcome with sauna. So with sauna, you could have the longevity play, you could have the recovery play, you could have like the growth hormone production play, you could have like the stress play. It all depends. And I hate saying that as an answer, but what we are finding is that if you look at the common denominator amongst all of those, the minimum threshold is 176 degrees, which tells you right now that you could rule out infrared sauna for being a good a source of heat for heat and heat stress therapy. Because it just does not get hot enough. When you look at the research that has continued to come out, the peer-reviewed, the research that is constantly being performed over in Europe, specifically since 2018, it's at least 176 degrees all the way up to 214 degrees. And for people to know, that does not mean that it's 176 degrees right here at like heart's level or waist level. It's actually at the very top of your head. So that is the even playing field across. For longevity, and it doesn't necessarily matter how experienced you are or how heat adapted you are. It's anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes increments at least 176. And the most for the most efficacy when it comes to longevity, decrease all-cause mortality, decrease in cardiovascular disease, it is 4 to 7 times weekly. So 4 to 7 times weekly has about the same effect. Once you start getting like 1 to 2, and then it starts to decline, obviously, compared to 4 to 7 times weekly. But there is a stat where it's nearly 50% decrease in risk of death from all-cause mortality, or decrease risk of death from cardiovascular disease if you sauna 4 times weekly, at least 4 times weekly, compared to if you don't do it at all. So what that tells you is that the people that are obviously consistent with sweating and consistent with being active and getting heat stress pose better results long-term in terms of lifespan and health span. And it's a concern because cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer in the United States. There's over 700,000 deaths from cardiovascular disease. All forms of cancer total up to 600,000. And it's one of those things where it's a lifestyle thing. So I feel like the world and the US specifically would be better off if more people are in the sauna, because not only does that mean that they have the means from a financial standpoint to be successful enough to be able to afford the ability to be able to get to a sauna at a YMCA, at a community center, or at their own home, but it's also a lifestyle amplifier. So to answer your question big time here, the duration is anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes between 176 to about 212 degrees. And then from there, there's different protocols based off of what you're looking for. The biggest ones for longevity, again, are about 4 times weekly at that duration. In terms of growth hormone production, where I see a lot of athletes want to get the benefits from it, it's actually 1 time weekly or even 1 time every 10 days. And that protocol is 2 times at 25 to 30 minutes in the sauna at around that 176, doesn't need to be much hotter than that. And then a 5-minute cooling period that can be with cold water immersion if you want, or just naturally cool yourself down outside the sauna. And you repeat that twice. And then you take a 4 to 5 to 6 hour rest period, and then you perform that same exact protocol again. It's an unnecessary amount of sauna, but at the same time, when you look at the totality of it, it's about 2 hours or so of sauna therapy in one day. But there's a growth hormone spike off of that of nearly 16-fold baseline by performing that one protocol. Now, if you were to decrease the period between that session and the next session of that same caliber, it starts to go down. If you're looking at across the playing field, consistent sauna produces around 6 to 7x growth hormone production. Building lean muscle mass, better body composition, conversion of white fat cells to beige and brown fat cells. If you just do it consistently, anywhere from that 4 to 7 times weekly, that's fine. But it's starting to become very glaring that those who sauna more frequently are living longer, and they're living better, and they're more fulfilled, and their fitness abilities are attributed to the number of times that they're sauning weekly.
That's super interesting. Can I I just want to clarify that protocol for the growth hormone increase. You're saying 20 to 25 minutes at that 176, get in there, then step out 5 minutes to kind of reset either just ambient temperature or in a cold plunge, then repeat that same thing. So another 20, 25 minutes, same temp. Then you take a 4 to 6 hour break, and then you repeat that same protocol.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It's a lot of sauna, and most people can't afford the ability to have that in their schedule. So you're talking like outliers. The people that are trying to build growth hormone production and build muscle mass 100%, like you're gonna have. I'm not gonna say you're gonna have to do it, but sauna should be a part of your training. But that was one of the research articles that came out that I thought was so interesting because it's a very, very unique, specific protocol.
I would love to
Um,
be able to pass along some of those studies too, just so people
yeah,
who,
yeah,
are interested in this stuff can dive a little deeper into some of the science behind it.
would love to.
I
There's
have
another
two.
one.
Can I
Yeah, go ahead.
quickly on the growth hormone production protocol, is that done on a day that on a recovery day, or can that be done on a day where you're also training?
That's a great question. I would need to look at like the control groups on that research to see like what the environment was like around the sauna sessions. I wouldn't be able to answer that on this podcast without looking at it, but that is a good question. I'm going to assume that that's probably on a recovery day, just because the time to train outside of that would be astronomical. You're already committing 2 hours to just that.
Yeah.
So I would doubt that they're getting that. Like your nervous system would get depleted
Yeah.
from doing that plus training the same day.
My other question around that is, you said between 176 and 214. Is there a negative impact in going above 214 in any sauna scenario?
Uh, for most people, there's a diminishing return after 214 degrees. I would say most people don't even need to go past 200 degrees. What you're looking for is I think one of the easiest ways to determine how aggressive a sauna session is by looking at your heart rate in the sauna, whether that's through your iWatch. My iWatch does not overheat when I'm in the sauna. It gets me within the ballpark of where I need to be, or even wearing a chest strap while you're in the sauna. Most sauna sessions for people, you'll get to zone two training, that's 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, and you'll probably stay there. If you're less heat adapted, you'll probably venture up into the zone three, zone four. If you start to go beyond the 20 minutes, yes, you will see heart rates well above that. And same thing with the heat. So if you go past 214, I've just noticed that it's more so of like a ego measuring test after about 214 degrees. Yes, you could do it, but there's really no benefit outside of just saying that you could go above 214 degrees.
Jordan, where are you normally at? What do you guys normally set it at when you're doing it?
We're usually between 190 and 200.
That's great. That is the
Yeah.
perfect pocket, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You could be super well heat adapted and still have a hell of a time between 190 to 200. And if you add steam to it too, it could get really hairy.
So as you mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast, the country's been going through a little bit of a heat wave. And normally we go in at that temperature for the first round is always 20 minutes, and then you do the cold plunge, and you come back and like you don't even start sweating for 10 minutes after that. So we usually go a little bit longer, like maybe 30 minutes. But that first round last Thursday, it was at least 100 degrees in where I live in New Hampshire. And we got in, and I don't even think the temperature was quite at 190 yet. It was probably more like 180-ish. And we're like, this is brutal. Like we only 10 minutes, and it was everything we could do just to stay in there for 10 minutes. Then we got out, got into the ice bath, came back, and we were able to do 20. But man, that outside temperature makes a huge difference, I think.
It's a
And the
huge, I
humidity.
mean, makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
It really does. But the cold, you brought up a good point too. Cold plunging, obviously, when it's 100 degrees outside and you were just in a sauna, is way more attractive than compared to New Hampshire winter, or an Ohio winter where it's 20, 15 degrees. Um, my favorite protocols and my favorite sessions are always when I include cold immersion. You get a high from it, you get like the endorphin rush from it, but there is not as much research that has come out about perfect sauna protocols when it comes to cold immersion as well.
Mm.
I think that those are just starting to come out right now. But I do think that when you factor in how you feel after a sauna cold plunge session, and you look at where your heart rate is, you look at the sleep quality and the anecdotal evidence that come from like being able to like watch your, Aura Ring data post sauna session and how you include it with cold. The evidence that's going to come out to me, I'm a betting man on it right now. It's going to be in massive favor that the best sauna sessions also include cold immersion. So
My little anecdotal evidence of that as well. When I was living at the Olympic Training Center, I've brought this up before on many podcasts over the years. After every training session, we would do contrast. We did have a sauna, but we had a hot plunge and a cold plunge right next to each other. And so we would do protocol that was recommended by the sports science department there. And to me, it was one of the most noticeable differences in terms of my recovery. If I had a really hard training session, I slept better post contrast. I noticed my ability to wake up and feel recovered. So from my perspective, it was something that, you could do all the other things. You get massages, you could do, some kind of Theragun or Hypervolt or whatever it might be. The contrast therapy was noticeable in my own training. It was something that I felt like I needed to do to be able to be recovered enough for the next day's session. Now, the protocol itself, ending in hot or ending in cold, I think is always a little bit of a subject that needs consideration. Because ending on hot is comfortable. And it's like, okay, I'm getting out and I feel good and I'm ready to go. Ending on cold can be a little bit more uncomfortable, which I think is part of the necessity of it. But I've been told that if you're anticipating moving on with the rest of your day and maybe even going to do other physical activity, ending on cold is the appropriate way to approach it. If you're anticipating going to bed shortly after, that ending in hot could be a good way to do it. Do you have any recommendations in terms of best way to approach a contrast therapy session like that?
I think you just nailed it perfectly. If you are positioning your sauna ice session earlier in the day, midday, 100% end on cold. There's great benefits of that. It lets your body be able to naturally heat itself back up in a way to where you're going to get energy from it. However, when it's nighttime and it's time to go to bed about half hour to an hour after your sauna session, you want to end on hot. And here's the reason. When you look at your body's internal temp when you're going to sleep, let's say I'm lying down for bed, it's 9 o'clock at night. My body, to be able to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system state, to be able to get to that rest or digest, I have to decrease. My body's subconsciously decreasing its internal body temp so I could get to that colder state so I could fall asleep. So it seems almost counterproductive to warm yourself up prior to bed. But actually what ends up happening is that when you're naturally letting your body cool off post sauna session an hour before bed, it's going to be in a compensatory pattern to where I'm going to decrease, my body's going to naturally decrease below baseline to cool itself off. So all of a sudden you get yourself directly into that pocket of internal body temp to get you into your sleep quicker and faster and be able to keep you into a deeper sleep, more REM sleep. And so when you factor it in, like essentially sauna, you're inducing yourself a fever upwards of 101 plus degrees internal body temp. And if body temp's naturally 98, oftentimes you'll see people register like a 97 and 96 when they're going to bed. And so the opposite occurs when you're doing cold. So if it's prior to bed and I just cooled my body off, I'm at that like 96, 97 degrees internal body temp. My body's going to naturally try to cool or warm itself back up. So it's actually going to go above baseline. Now I'm having a harder time falling asleep because my body's trying to fight it to bring it back below baseline, but you just did something to counteract that. So I think like when you think about it that way, I always like if I'm doing a great sauna session, cold plunge session prior to bed, I'll start off with cold, then sauna, cold sauna, maybe 3 rounds of that, but I'm always in on sauna. And if it's earlier in the day, 100%, why not end on cold? I'm going to get that great sense of energy that I want from my sauna cold plunge protocol, similar to that of like a double shot of espresso, except without the repercussions and without the consequence.
I love it. And I
So
just have
one
to
thing
bring this
that's
up as a
happened-
dad. Go ahead, BJ.
No, I'll say one thing that's happened, Peter, in our summer camp now, we have so many competing collegiate gymnasts, and they come in, and some have experienced sauna and some have not. But when they, even if they're just here for a week or 2 weeks, when they consistently add sauna later in the day after they've had a chance to train, they've coached all day, it's a rigorous environment, it's super high energy, but it's a rigorous environment. And then they train later in the day, and then they add sauna, and they're so vocal about it, how they're able to keep their energy up later in the week, over the 2 week span. But it goes to what you're talking about, where they're literally priming themselves for a better night's rest, and you've been to Power Monkey and you know how it's so fun, the community aspect of it, to you might accidentally stay up all night, chatting and getting to know somebody. But these athletes are putting in a ton of great work for us coaching, and then they're trying to do their own work. And to watch the very short-term benefit of some, especially the athletes that have heard about it it's very topical right now. So they've read about it a little bit, but they've never experienced it. And then literally after a couple of days, they get into that rhythm and their sleep is better. They can coach and train better the next day. And by Friday, when we're quote unquote finished, they're ready to go. They feel great. And it's a cool thing to watch. It's a cool thing to see.
And to add on to that, like you're saying, there's an acute benefit directly after a sauna session where the 12 to 24 hours after, you're noticing sleep quality improve, recovery improve. You're noticing that like heart rate is typically lower. You're noticing that like blood pressure is typically lower. One of the more interesting long-term benefits that most people don't know of yet is that there was research that came out that for one single sauna session up to 20 minutes long was having effects up to 6 weeks after when it comes to depression and anxiety. And I thought that was massive. Like one session lasts up to 6 weeks to decrease the effects of that. And there's so many people that are on medication for anxiety and on medication for depression. It's like, man, what a great holistic able to stave that off. So like, yeah, there's acute benefit and there's all these amazing long-term benefits where it's just like, if you consistently do it, imagine how good you would feel and how many people you want to include as part of that experience if you have it there at your home.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jordan, you're smiling over there. Like
I was just going to say like, what you just said about how you want to include other people in it because of the benefits that you feel like. So a couple friends of mine and one of them got a sauna and some cold plunges at his house, and we've been doing it for like the last 8-10 months. And one day in the sauna, after maybe 6 months, we were like, you know what? We want to open a business. We want to do this and offer it to other people. So we are in the process of building out a business right now in a physical space that will offer contrast therapy, but it's all because of what you just said. You want to be able to share this with other people because of how great it has been making us feel, both physically and mentally, with the not just what you mentioned about the depression thing, but like just being with other people in the sauna and that community aspect. So you're 100% like hitting the nail on the head that you really do want to just keep giving this to other people because it's so beneficial. And something
that's underrated too. Oftentimes the quality of the person that's in the sauna is somebody that like shares similar values to you.
Sure.
And I've noticed some of our best business ideas and also some of like our best deals that we've ever done in business have happened as a result of a sauna session because you're getting down to the point, things start to get tough. And then that conversation that you had in the sauna leads to an email exchange that then leads to like a partnership that you never anticipated. But it all resulted from this very holistic way to be able to connect with somebody. Yeah. It's a much better version of like getting coffee. You know, like everybody wants to go, oh, let's go grab a coffee. It's like, no, dude, let's come over and do a sauna cold plunge. It's gonna be so fun.
Well, that's part of it. It's like I talk to my business partner now and I'm like, oh, we're sauning today. I'm like, yeah. Or he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Let's have like a business meeting while we're over there. Like we always talk about what our next stages of the business are going to be in our sauna sessions. And so it's
your office,
right? Yeah.
It's the Zone 2 meeting, man. I think that there's a future of more Zone 2 meetings, whether it's
rucking. Absolutely. That's a good way to do it. I got to ask you about Heat Shock proteins, because obviously it's a talking point of the Rogans of the world in terms of what they actually are. Can you speak on what Heat Shock proteins are a little bit and why they are beneficial?
Yeah. So I want to just keep this as high level as possible. Heat shock proteins are like a safety mechanism for waste and like proteins that are misfolding as a result of like not being in heat stress. So a heat shock protein is activated in a hot environment, again, like that 176 degrees plus, and they help clear out and also fold proteins that are misfolding. Like proteins fold and unfold based off of like hydration levels, heat, cold, the whole thing. But they just basically go in and just create a more metabolically efficient cell. So a lot of these proteins that are misfolding are happening in the mitochondria, which is an energy, obviously like a huge energy booster for our cells in our body. And so heat shock proteins are activated as a result of heat stress, and they just go in and clear out or be able to like correctly fold proteins that need to do their job the right way. And it's all a result of that high heat stress. You can't necessarily get that from lower temperature saunas yet that we know of, unless if you're standing there long enough to where that trigger point happens, but we don't know what that trigger point is because it's so individualized for people. But again, like right now, we just know that it needs to be a super hot environment for those heat shock proteins to be able to activate.
It's super interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it actually did. And I think you stated in a way that probably is understandable for the general listener out there, which I think is really important rather than trying to be a little too scientific with things. But we had Dr. Craig Heller on, Stanford professor, one of the creators of the Cool Mitt, not that long ago. And, you know, obviously we know Wyatt from Ice Barrel and all the benefits and the talking points that come along with cold therapy, and it's cold therapy and hot therapy. And both of these are incredibly important to be doing, but they seem to both be beneficial in different ways. And then contrast seems to be, you know, a great way to be able to approach it even differently. It seems like all three of those have different benefits. Like contrast is not just a combination of hot and cold. It's actually creating different benefits. And so it's not one or the other. It's not like I'm a cold plunge guy and that's where I find the most benefits, or I'm a sauna guy. It seems like all of these have benefits to them that are slightly different. Would you categorize that as correctly? And like there is a space for just doing cold therapy in some world. There is a space for just doing sauna. It's really dependent on what your goals are and what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head the exact right way. They coexist really well and they're very symbiotic, to be honest with you. Like they both enhance one another. But let's be real, like not every single time you're going to hit the sauna from a convenience standpoint for your schedule, you're going to do sauna and cold plunge. Like that's a time commitment. Most oftentimes, I will cold plunge in the morning alone. I get my 2 to 3 minutes in and I'm totally cool with that. And I get the amazing benefits of that. And then in the evening, I hit my 20-minute session with my wife after putting the kids down because that's what our schedule allows for. And I got to get to bed. You know, like I need to get my 7, 8 hours of sleep. And not every night do I get to afford the ability of doing an hour-long contrast session. So practicality says, yeah, man, you know, you're not going to be able to marry the two every single time. And there's phenomenal benefit to each one as their own standalone mechanism for enhancing recovery and all the whole gambit. But in a perfect world, yeah, you blend the two and you get the amazing effect of it. But you hit the nail on the head.
I think that's so important to note. And with as many protocols and as many different things that we're all getting thrown at us these days in terms of you need to sleep 8 hours, you need to be in a sauna for this amount of time, you need to be working out this much, you should be going for, you know, zone 2 walking for an hour per. It's like, well, when am I supposed to work? When am I supposed to get anything else done with my day? And so like to create digestible, realistic targets, I think is really important, and kind of what you're going to, like, what can you fit into your day? What's going to maximize the benefit from these things? And then create kind of a prioritization list and say, this is the one that I feel I can fit in the best for what I need to get done and where I find the most benefit from it. And so like you saying you do 2 to 3 minutes in the cold plunge in the morning and then you do your 20 minutes at night in the sauna, that works for your schedule, and which is fantastic. And I think everyone needs to realistically, there's not a protocol that's right across the board. I think that's what we're trying to get across here, right? The protocols are meant to be able to enhance your daily life and your training and your mental capacity, and not create a situation where you feel forced to be able to feel like you need to do it to kind of like check off a box.
Yeah. Consistency isn't sexy. That's the biggest thing. Is when you think about all of the different protocols beyond just sauna cold plunge, like aerobic, like zone 2 training, minimum holds to like the amount of sleep that you actually need, like you said, it can become extremely overwhelming. And I feel like for me personally, I'm all about building a very sustainable, consistent, wellness focused lifestyle with my kids and my wife, and be able to include my friends as much as I can with that. And I always like to have one thing to be training for so I could like wake up and have that fire lit underneath me. But, you know, realistically speaking, I need to be able to move every day, you know, which means I need to sweat every day. I need to have good, consistent sleep. I need to eat well. And the number one predictor for longevity, bar none, is relationship quality. And it's being reviewed all the time. So I just need to be around really, really good people. And if I'm around really good people, that dictates my environment, and that's how we succeed. So for me, it's very, very simple. How can I just continue to do the simple things consistently well over time and let those compound? Again, because consistency isn't sexy. Most people don't want to lean in on those consistent, simple qualities.
Something easy at first. Absolutely. Dr. Jamie Shear, who's part of our Power Monkey team with her XFit Lab and her husband out based in New York. She did a lecture on longevity at our last camp and talked very highly of exactly what you mentioned, the idea of human interaction and, being able to share experiences with people as being one of the most important pieces of, longevity in general. And I think we're trying to do with Power Monkey, you're trying to do with CISO. And I love that idea of how can we create more environments where friends have a chance to meet up and share a positive experience with one another rather than just maybe going to a bar and getting a drink. And so these are the kind of things that I think we can all lean into and create better situations for ourselves where the next day we wake up and we feel good about what we did the previous day.
Yeah, I'm all about leading a life with no consequences. Like the actions that we have should not lead to consequences. And it's all about moderation too. Like 80 to 85% of the time gets me like above average. Like I'm always progressing. The 10 to 15% of the time, why not have, I'm totally down to have a cocktail with a good friend. I know my limit. I'm totally down to have like that piece of like dessert or like that pizza. Dude, 100% I'm gonna have it. But as long as I'm consistent, I'm good.
I got a couple of other questions here before we kind of start wrapping it up here. But I saw one of your posts on Sisu's page about the benefits for people over 40, and you got 3 40-plus-year-olds on the podcast here. And what specifically is the over 40 population finding beneficial that through sauna that we can kind of relate to our community who, obviously we have a lot of older people that come to camp and follow us. What are the benefits specifically for that population?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that's a common denominator amongst any age level, but specifically like the 40 to 50 age group is sleep. That's honestly where most people's sleep start to decline even more because they're in that like hyper growth mode period with like their financials, which means that at the same time, like stress levels are higher. So like when they're more stressed out, quality of sleep goes down, but the sauna helps induce a deeper sleep because it gets you to sleep quicker and keeps you to sleep. So, as we all know, sleep is the number one recovery tool that we all have that's free. But sauna helps induce a deeper sleep. So those go hand in hand. So you get that. And because you're getting a better quality of sleep and you're getting that period to be able to unwind and detox, but also be able to like stay off your phone while you're in the sauna, you get that ability to be able to de-stress, which we all know we need a moment to pause every single day and connect back with ourselves and connect back with the people inside the sauna. And that de-stressing standpoint is massive for that mid 40s male, female. Outside of that, I think like when you look at recovery into of itself, we're realizing that the more blood flow, the better when it comes to recovery. So if I just hit a nasty leg session or upper body session or a nasty Metcon, we're finding that the more that I move at a lower intensity state, the zone 1, zone 2, to be able to help trigger blood flow into areas that I was just using, the quicker I'm able to expedite my recovery window. So say from 72 hours to 48 hours if I need to, or to be able to get my nervous system decompress. So the sauna helps trigger that as well. So as we all know, as we get older, recovery windows typically open larger. So what used to, a lunge workout that would once take me 2 days to recover now is 3 or 4 days. I can now sauna, and if I include cold as well, I could decrease that window because I have amplified circulation and blood flow to those areas. So I would say like those are like the biggest 3 things. You have sleep, stress, and a decreased recovery window. There's still more research that needs to come out on the decreased window in terms of like the exact timing, but I don't know if they'll ever truly come out with a perfect window because there's so many different muscle fiber types and individual levels of fitness to be able to press home on that.
Love it. Well, for someone that's mid 40s now, stressed out of their brains, and have 2 little children who prevent my sleep, sauna will definitely be a bigger part of my equation moving forward. Thank you for that, Peter.
Yep.
We got to ask you about you being a big steak guy and the meat sweat situation that come along with it. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on with the meat sweats and whether or not that's actually a good thing?
Man, I love that you brought that up. One of my favorite things is red meat. I get so much energy from red meat. There's something about being a man that's like, it's just in our tribal like DNA to crush a good steak. But one of my favorite days of the month is when we have our friends over, and we'll have 8 friends over and everybody brings steaks, and we do a sauna cold plunge session, and then we finish it off with some good like medium rare meat on the grill, like some good ribeye. And because like your endorphin levels are already higher after, and then you get that um, just incredible like quality of meat. Oh man, you're just on cloud nine. If you've ever had, if you know, we coined it the meat sweats because it's funny, but at the same time, if you're looking for just this insane insurgence of energy into your life, highly recommend sauna cold plunge directly into a steak.
I think we have to work that into camp somehow.
Oh, absolutely. We got the Traeger grills at camp now. We might need
Oh, is that
to
a
turn.
thing?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So
Oh man,
uh
maybe in the fall I'll turn on the Traegers with
Come on.
you guys, and yeah, BJ and I could just be slinging
Sounds
some
great.
chips.
You're scratching me right where I itch right now. That's
all right, meat sweat sessions getting added into the protocol for camp. It's done for the fall.
Love that. I love
Um,
that.
have you ever seen the movie The Great Outdoors?
Man,
I don't know how
I
old you are. How old are you, Peter?
29.
Oh,
Oh
you're a
my God,
baby.
he
Oh
hasn't
my
seen it.
goodness. There's no
There's
way.
no way he's seen it.
Yeah,
So
I've heard of it. I'm pretty sure I've seen parts of it, but
it's a classic 80s movie. Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, some of the greats from that time period. And there's a part of the movie where he eats the old 96er, which is 96 ounces of steak. And he wins kind of a t-shirt, and his meal is comped and his picture up on the wall kind of a thing.
yeah, man.
And that scene of him eating that steak is just legendary. So if you ever get a chance, you're a meat sweat guy, I would highly recommend checking out the old 96er.
There was one time for a birthday a few years back, I got I don't know, it was like a 42-ounce tomahawk,
Mm.
and I ate it down to the bone, man. But I was sitting straight up in bed afterwards, sweating. And I remember that's kind of like where the whole idea came from. I was like, man, I was profusely sweating in my bed. My wife looked at me like I was ready to have a heart attack or something. But,
Should we add that into a challenge night?
Oh,
The old
man.
96er at camp. We gotta have like 3 people sit down, like 3
Yeah.
adventurous people put that out, old 96 for Wednesday night at camp.
We're gonna have to get Tums as a sponsor for camp if we do that.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
100%.
One other thing I got to ask you that's specific to you. We came across Pete 90X training, and
Oh,
we got to know exactly what that is.
You clearly read the PDF that my sister's my
Is that who that is? That's your sister?
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's like my teammate in this now, which has been so fun. But I've always been really dialed in with my fitness and health as much as I could. I've always gotten energy from it. It's so fun. But my first big training program I ever followed was P90X. And so I was a basketball player. That's how I, that was my big thing in high school. And so I started all 4 years on varsity, and I was always like the guy in the weight room. And there was one time I'll never forget. I threw a full court pass, but it just went sailing 20 feet above anybody's head out of bounds. And the student section just started chanting P90X. It was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. But at the same time, like that's where the moniker started. And no, I don't know if you guys ever hit like a P90X like chest and back workout, but those were grueling, man. And that's kind of where I fell in love with fitness back in high school, was following those in the basement at 6 a.m. in the morning before school, just getting your chest and back in, and plyometrics and Kenpo. Man, those are so fun.
Oh, my God.
You were in high
Backwards.
school, and dating myself again here. But I remember those workouts when I was coaching at Stanford, and I was in the gym prior to the guys coming in, and I was on my side of the gym, and I was doing CrossFit style workouts before I was really doing full CrossFit, and the women's coaches were all doing P90X. Every day in the gym on their TV, they would be doing P90X while I was doing kind of CrossFit across the gym from them. So I became very familiar with those workouts, watching them going through them on a regular basis. So yeah,
I have a fun memory of doing same thing, to date myself, doing one of those workouts. I threw in the yoga because as a gymnast, I would compare like, if you can imagine, I would sum up my gymnastics career as like if a rhinoceros did gymnastics. That's like the jumping off one. But I was like, you know what? I'll throw in this yoga because it's got to be
Now,
just
now I'm
all-
picturing a rhinoceros doing yoga.
A
go
baby
by the number, yeah.
rhinoceros.
And I'm trying to do this, and Osh, my wife, we were dating at the time, but she comes in and she's like, "What are you doing? You look like a toddler that fell off the couch. Like, what is going on with you?" It was so the chest and back workouts, yes, awesome. The yoga, you got to get your mind right before you take on the P90X yoga.
Well, wearing the diaper, BJ, definitely helped make you look like the toddler. So
I fell right on my safety pin. That's how that went. That's how that.
Still some of the hardest ab workouts I've ever done was the ab ripper X. You would be sore for like a week after. It's like always bent forward because the repetition, the volume is so high. So funny, man. Yeah, but those were great workouts. So
well, we got some quick one-hitter questions if you're up for them now.
let's do it, man.
If you listen to the podcast, you know some of them. First one is an easy one. We don't have Mike on this one, so hopefully you go in the right direction here. But what sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Weightlifting.
We don't have to tell Mike.
That was quick, yeah. Mike doesn't listen to these things, so he'll never know that I lost the point on that one.
I'm decent. I'm decent at gymnastics, but weightlifting, there's something about just slinging weight as a dude that you just can't beat.
Red meat, snatching, sauna. There it is. It's done.
Good life. If you're doing that, you've got a good life.
Part two. Any guests that you think would be good for us to have on the podcast as an interview?
One of my really good friends, Todd Anderson, he's out of Nashville. He'd be a great guy to come in and speak on sleep. He takes tons of great evidence and data and research and boils it down to very good layman's terms so people understand in a way to where it doesn't become annoying to listen to, but also it's fun to listen to. And he does a great job educating on sleep.
Awesome. We can maybe pass along his information to Jordan and we can set that up. Lastly, if you were a book reader, any books that you've come across recently that are worth checking out? And if not, a TV show or a movie that's worth watching?
I'm always knee deep in a book. And the one that I just finished up is called Endurance by, I forget his exact name, the author, but Endurance is about Shackleton. Shackleton was a late 1800s, early 1900s Antarctic explorer. And he took 26 men down to Antarctica and the boat sank. And then they had to survive for 2 years on ice floes.
Oh my goodness.
Phenomenal
2
book.
years.
Wow.
And they didn't have any food. So it is the best book of survival I've ever read, but is the best book on leadership I've ever read in my life. All 100% of men that went down, the 26 guys all survived. So it's an incredible book. It's about the Endurance is the name of the ship that sank. And it's about Sir Ernest Shackleton. And Shackleton, if you've never heard of him, man, oh my gosh, total stud, total badass.
We got to check it out. And the author is Alfred Lansing. So we got to check that one out for sure. That one sounds amazing. Peter, thank you, man. Thank you for the time today. I appreciate all the insight into all the great things you're doing with Sisu and for being a part of the Power Monkey community. Where can people find you and find more information about Sisu Sauna?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. To be able to find us for Sisu, it's at Sisu_sauna on Instagram. You can find us at sisulifestyle.com. And then you can find me personally at Peter Nelson II to follow my individual account. You can see all the behind the scenes stuff, training, family life, the whole thing.
Love it. And you can obviously follow along with Power Monkey Camp. And if you are coming down in the fall, the last week of September 22nd to 28th, you will be able to participate and hang out in the Sisu Sauna with us. If not, you can come to the fall camp, which we've announced the dates recently, end of April, beginning of May of 2025. That will be another opportunity to come hang out with us in person. For those of you who want to participate with the Power Monkey experience in a digital version, please check out the Power Monkey training app in both iOS and Android. And you come hang out with us and learn a bit some of those skill-based training. We appreciate the time, and thank you all for listening.